We're in, perfect, okay. It's still early, I just wanted to make sure the tech was all set.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons.
So, how are the driving lessons going?
Very good. This is my last class today. It's the final, so.
Today? Okay, so you're gonna do your
So-
report and go?
Your business is
Good.
in Holdridge,
I
right?
had robotics after school.
What
and I
is
went to
the
lip sync
zoning
rehearsal for
issue?
an hour,
Oh my
and now I'm here.
There's signs
Straight
up.
to school and I'm going to driver's ed.
Yeah.
About the
Double
Make
no.
sure you take.
Hey, Ed, how did you do that?
It says something about commercial zoning.
It's they want to extend the commercial
You go
zone.
down to you see the video camera down below
Oh,
where
it's
it
on
says,
backgrounds.
Yep.
Yes, I was
Down,
looking for that
backgrounds.
earlier.
Yep.
Route 175.
And so-
Okay, thank you.
Are your parents talking about?
Down.
Ultra top
Yeah.
double
Okay.
propane.
My
Down
birthday's
across from
another
town
month,
hall.
so I got some
Hey,
time.
that maybe references.
And-
Sorry.
I'm not exactly
It should,
sure.
You're gonna save
That
for a
doesn't seem
car?
that
Sean, I
controversial.
might be able to shift
Not
that
very
for now.
big space.
Okay.
Until I pull up to like.
Changing zoning
Okay.
is always.
What?
No, no, I know.
Did you find it?
You can save.
Yes, I'm scrolling. I want to find a background that I use when I do Zoom for work.
Yeah. Did you figure out where it is?
Yes, but my question is actually when I have to go pick up Orion, do you want me to just like mute and turn off my screen and go get him? Do you want me to completely leave and come back?
Oh, that's a good question. My guess is you could probably leave and come back.
Okay.
That probably makes the most sense because the meeting might end in between. You
Okay,
know,
that's what I will do then.
I think that'll work. And if we're here, you can just pop right back on.
Just two of these,
I
right?
think so.
All right.
Yes. Wrapped.
Alrighty, I have 6 o'clock. I'm calling the meeting to order. We could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In attendance tonight, we have Ms. Starmer, Mr. Porter Zuckerman, Mr. Billings, Mr. Terrio, and we have Siobhan Connolly online along with Mr. Twaddell. So we have everybody but Jim. Jim is absent with notice.
With notice?
Yes,
Yes.
with notice.
Chauvin, just because you're dialed in twice doesn't mean you get 2 votes. I'm just saying.
Thank you for the procedural clarification, Mr. Twaddell.
Just I'm here to help.
It's 6 o'clock and I am going to open public comment. Mr. Parsons, do we have any electronic public comment?
When I checked 15 minutes ago, there was none. I don't have it open. Take me a second.
Don't worry, I'll come back to you then. We're going to jump right in then to donations. We have the formal request by Mr. Bechet for the Geraldine A. Fountain Memorial Foundation, the amount of $3,585 for the benefit of ILES Naturalist in Learning Program with Prescott Farms.
Move to accept.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the donation? With gratitude.
With gratitude.
I have a question on the event. Because that's where I live, you know, from the standpoint of the nature of learning.
It's an ongoing, so they work throughout the school year with classes on different science specific relating to nature, and they go out on the trail and they bring things
All
in.
classes?
So they work, I believe it is all the way through 6th grade.
Beautiful.
I will confirm.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Nothing online.
Nothing online, thank you, Mr. Parsons. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? As unanimous acceptance, thank you, Geraldine A. Fountain Memorial Foundation. Next up, we are going to do a large group of, what is this one we have?
So we have some donations first, and then we have
Then
the
we do
public
the
hearing after,
hearing.
so we can include them in the.
So we have a donation for the Light It Up Lakers campaign, Donald and June Hall, in the amount of $1,000. Is that in relation to the Donald Hall, the poet?
Oh,
Like a
I'm
song
not
or
sure.
Anyway,
That's-
Hannaford Supermarket in the amount of $1,000, which is a banner. Hart's Turkey Farm Restaurant in the amount of $2,000, which is a banner. And Lewis and Mary Kahn in the amount of $300. And Paul and Nancy Levine in the amount of $100. And Meredith Landing Real Estate in the amount of $2,000, which is a banner.
That's very nice.
And move to accept.
Move to accept. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Billings. Any discussion on the Lighted Up Lakers campaign? Donations? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Raise your hand, thumbs up. Thank you very much. Now, we're gonna have our public hearing. Today, because while our donations individually are less than $20,000, because this is a collective thing, we thought it would be best procedurally to have a public hearing. So I'm gonna open the public hearing for acceptance of the Lighted Up Lakers contributions at 6:04. Can I do both of them at the same time?
So the next one is the acceptance. So I think you want to finish the
The
hearing.
hearing, got
But
it.
you may want to, I know that our student representative is trying to get to a class, so I don't know. You can
I
leave-
have some time. If,
I was gonna say. leave the
Caleb and I
hearing.
have a signal
Oh,
system.
you do? I'll stay out of it.
He does this.
What
Anyway,
is the target?
330 something thousand?
Yeah.
338 maybe? Is there anybody here, anybody online that has a comment regarding the donations made for the Lighted Up Lakers campaign? Hearing none, any board members have any comments on this?
Charlie,
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
question: what was the I seem to recall that there was an amount that if it was raised, that would trigger an action either by the district or by the town. I can't remember which, or a commitment of something or other. I don't know why I'm stuck on that. Could somebody refresh my memory?
I think you might be thinking of if we get donations in the amount of $20,000 or more, we have to have a public hearing. And while we haven't had individual donations greater than that amount, collectively, we're well above $20,000. So that's why we were having this public hearing. Is that what you're thinking about?
I might be conflating that with another discussion that was. I thought if we reached a certain amount of donations, we were committed to seeing this through.
Well, we've already made that commitment back when they first brought this up. We actually took a vote on whether, if they raised the money, would we for the Lakers lights. And we told them that yes, we actually took a formal vote on that.
Okay.
We're committed. The board is committed that you raise the money, we'll run with it.
But for clarity, the money is not appropriated from taxes. This is
Correct.
only, we have committed to spending money that is donated for this.
Correct. We were equally clear, I think, that
Yeah.
You were.
That-
Yeah, we have not made any commitment. There's no threshold
there's
where
no financial.
gonna kick
on the
in our-
district. Right.
appropriated money.
Okay.
The board.
Thanks, Duncan.
That was totally independent. That was the board acting as just the board wanting to help out this local cause. Had nothing to do with the district, other than the fact we're in the district and we want to see this thing through.
Okay, that was the clarification I was looking for.
Yeah, right. Good. All right, well, hearing nothing else about the hearing, I'm going to close the public hearing on the acceptance. And I would now accept a motion, acceptance of donations in the amount of $48,402.99 made to date for the Interlake School District for the Charles G. Burroughs Memorial Athletic Field lights.
Put that forward.
Seconded.
Nancy beat you to it, but I'll let you second it, Siobhan.
All right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
Accepted the funds to date.
Thank you.
Now, Caleb, please enlighten us with the activities of the student body.
so this week and next week, we started lip sync rehearsals. So Winter Carnival will start next week. And the performance is Thursday night at the auditorium. We'll be selling tickets next week. High school math team has a competition tomorrow. Currently, we are first in the small schools district
Nice.
for New Hampshire. And so hopefully we can keep that streak up.
Who's the advisor for the math?
I believe Miss Carney and Sarah Otis right now
Oh.
are the advisors. And then right now the Laker Bots, we're week 5 of build season, and you can come see us at our second competition on March 22nd, 23rd at UNH. We have a robot up and driving, and so we're ahead of where we have been the past couple seasons.
Excellent.
What's your challenge this year?
We have giant kickballs that are 16 inches in diameter, and then a piece of PVC pipe that we have to score different heights. Robot reaches like 8 feet high. It's pretty cool.
So is that like a basketball type approach? Like drop it and up?
Yeah, the kickball, yeah. You score it in a big like net.
Okay,
So
excellent. Anything else, Caleb?
no, that's what we got.
Caleb, you are excused to go finish your, good luck on you have a test tonight?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
What's your-
What's your class that you're going to?
Driver's
Driving.
Oh,
Oh.
good. Good luck.
Ah.
For our sake, please don't cheat.
Don't use AI. All right, we have next up the board meeting minutes from the January 14th, 2025 work session, which was a regular school board meeting.
And those are attachment packet page 2 through 9, if you're using a hard copy.
Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Siobhan. Any other discussion on the minutes from January 14? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I.
Can abstain. Then we have the minutes from January 21, which was a special school board meeting. You know, to this day, I've been on this board for, I don't know, 7 years, something like that. What's the difference between a special school board meeting and a school board meeting?
Well, you have your kind of your typical pattern you follow, which is the second Tuesday of the month. That's a regular meeting. And then if you're calling a meeting for something else,
That's when it's a special.
when it's called a special.
Okay.
But we used to routinely, when we had 2 meetings a month, there was the regular meeting and then there was always something to
The
do.
special. Got it. Thank you, Duncan.
And that
Thank
was
you, Mary.
historical.
Okay. They're all special.
They are.
Just saying. Anyway, I'd entertain a motion to approve the January 21st special school board meeting minutes,
Which are attachment page 10 through 12,
10 through 12.
with your white packet.
And that's where we wrapped up our budget.
I'll move
Your
that
white
in.
packet.
Nancy has made a motion, seconded by Mark. Any other questions or comments on the January 21 minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes
I'd
are
like to
approved.
abstain, given that I managed to show up in the last 2 minutes or whatever of the meeting.
So noted, Mr. Twaddell, thank you very much. Current bills payable, general operating expenses. I think they speak for themselves. They're going around the room here.
Those are on,
Will they be emailed to Jim, Ed, and,
so they have them in their packet,
okay,
so they can,
if they want to approve them?
yeah. I mean, they can approve them this evening, but we only need
Right,
so
good
we,
point. Got it, thank you for keeping me on track. I'd make a motion to approve, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the? Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the manifests?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
I.
Okay, we have an
Thank you.
information item with the enrollment report.
Sorry, Charlie, one quick question, administrative. For purposes of signatures and so on and so forth, will that manifest need to go out or do you have a quorum there they can sign and we're all good?
We have a quorum here, physically in person, so we're technically all good. Thank you.
and that was a
Mrs. Moriarty.
unanimous vote.
That was a unanimous vote.
So you have in your packet, on page 17 of your white pages. So we are up 2 students from where we were last month. So we seem to be stabilized, I would say, at about 922, 924.
Did they just move into the district, is that?
I'm not, I don't know, I do know, like first grade changed, so I don't know if they were, I'm assuming they were new move-ins.
Next up, we have the staffing. Priority.
So you have the staffing report. As I shared last month, we're in a much better position than where we were last June. We continue to kind of be holding steady as to where we were last month, but again, we are in a much better position than we were last June.
Mary, I'm asking this question just for the benefit of the public meeting. Do you think we have enough time has gone by to come to the conclusion that the changes we made to the para-educator contract have really helped facilitate filling those roles?
I do. I think that that's a fair assessment. In addition, I think retention as well as from a system standpoint, moving to the 37.5-hour week really allows us to better utilize staffing for supervision and keeping our schools running, I think, more smoothly, as well as providing built-in opportunities for staff connection, which was certainly something people have been advocating for. So it's amazing when you try to make something work that doesn't work, right? Because that's what you have. The adjustment to the time, which a big part of that was being able to do the health insurance, has, I think, really created a lot of positive benefits. I know it's expensive and it's been certainly a cost to the community, but I think it was definitely needed, and I do think has put us in a much more solid position with hiring.
Mary, the notion, I think, was that time would be spent connecting with teachers that they're supporting, or and also in training and just things that were lacking before that. And I'm sensing from what you're saying that that's been a positive effect.
It has. It's and it's a combination of being able to provide supervision as kids come and go, right? That's a big part of what we do.
Yeah.
But also then creating schedules so that there can be that connection, because connecting with teachers was certainly a big piece. But also worked in was a monthly staff meeting, so that was another opportunity. And so I think that those barriers being removed have been positive and will only go up from here. And I do think, it's interesting, one of the things that Lisa Holliday and I have talked about, so Director of Student Services, who works, planning a lot of the professional learning for paraeducators. I think sometimes an area we can certainly grow is making sure that our staff do realize all the benefits maybe that were gained. People who are directly involved, I think, have that understanding, but I think that there's an opportunity. We have training in March, and Lisa's going to use that as an opportunity to help people realize just how significant of a gain it was.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Any other questions about staff? Hearing none, we're going to go on to the year-to-date financial report. Mrs. Moriarty.
So it's for those using the packet, it is page 19 of the white packet. We seem to, we're maintaining a good position, at this time of the year. Last year, we were about at 3.94% available. We're at 4.16. In fiscal year 2023, we were 4.29. So, we're feeling rather in a positive place. What I will say is things change. I do know of some special education decisions that were made after this was run. So, those are costs that are realities. So our position, certainly will change between now and next month with that additional impact.
Do you think, is your sense, and this is a crystal ball question, you think we're gonna be able to make it through the end of the year, or are we gonna have to dip into our expendable trust fund?
My crystal ball at this stage tells me that we should not have to do that.
Great. Any other questions about our financial position? Hearing none, I'm moving on to the annual meeting warrant articles order and preparations.
So I just we did confirm that the order of the warrant articles, there was a question about could the bond be first? We did confirm about Barbara Loman that should, can stay in the order that it was presented last Wednesday. Those have been entered into the DRA, so the Department of Revenue Administration. We don't know what they'll say. We always have to wait for them to come back. So we've done our part and we're on the waiting game to hear back from them. What I did want to ask the board is, typically with the leadership team drafting, who would make a motion and who would make a second, and then having that typically be kind of the roadmap for
Yes.
the annual meeting. Is that a direction you want to still do?
Yes.
I think so. It makes for a much more orderly meeting and it helps the moderator.
It might do to just explain particularly for Ed about that.
Oh, so, and Siobhan too.
Yeah.
And Jim. But what we do is we take each warrant article and we assign it to 2 school board members, a school board member to move the question, and then a school board member to second the question. And that way we can get the question into play in an efficient manner. And then
I've
the
been there
moderator.
before, you silly goose.
Oh, that's right. Okay, gotcha.
So you're saying we have plants in the crowd?
No.
We just have a little card at our place that says, so that so it goes faster. I mean, one of us has to do all of them, or somebody at the board has to do them, and it just, so we don't step on each other.
Right, so we just divvy them up amongst all the board.
Okay.
All right. So Sandwich open enrollment process.
So that is attachment page 20 if you're using the packet. Last month, Mr. Hilmer and I shared this process with the board. We are hoping the board will be in a position this evening to approve it, which allows for an outreach, a welcome night for incoming families. Families having until May 16th to fill out a registration packet and return it to Sandwich Central School. Then starting in May, Mr. Hilger will prioritize 22 primary multi-age, so that's K1, enrollment placements. First, it will be for students who are actively residing in Sandwich. Then it will be for students actively residing in Center Harbor or Meredith that have a sibling. So that would be the next round, and if needed, a lottery. And then the third round would be for other students living in Center Harbor or Meredith. And again, that may require there may not be enough seats, so that would be a lottery. And so families would be notified by June 30th. And the remaining 3 seats would be available should there be move-ins throughout the school year for students who live in Sandwich.
Yep.
Any questions on the plan that has been laid out for us?
Mary, as I guess as establishing a benchmark, going in, there's always turbulence when this is the new policy, procedure, whatever you want to call it, right? And everybody says, well, that's not the way we've always done it. And well, that's the way we do it now. That always creates some friction. So I have no issue with point number 1. That makes complete and total sense to me. Point, the second round, I guess I'm looking at that, and it seems to me that folks that already have a child in the Sandwich Center SCS, kind of already have a leg up on this lottery process. are we going to re-baseline that and we start at 0, or are we going to start exactly where this says? So if you've already got a child that's already in Sandwich Central School, you're second priority. I'm just asking. I'm not trying to go one way or another. I'm just asking.
Your interpretation is correct, that if you have a sibling already at Sandwich Central School, you're the next
Tier.
So next tier. So first is you actually reside in Sandwich.
Right.
The next tier is you have a sibling. And so it's potential that all open seats could be filled by siblings. I mean, that could be a reality, and that there wouldn't be an option to go to the third tier.
What if you don't have a sibling, but you are already, like, your oldest child is already enrolled in Sandwich Central School, but you're a resident of Central. I can't talk. I apologize. You're a resident of Central Harbor. You have a child already enrolled in SCS. You are not seeking to enroll a sibling in SCS. Like, I guess, is this open enrollment? Like, once you're in, or is it, hey, every year we're going through this again?
Yes,
For
yes,
kindergarten.
this is for K and 1. And once you're in, you're in.
So it's only it's the idea that there are a set number of new spaces every year because there's a new kindergarten in first grade. And if we have too many kids in, we would have to get another faculty member, and we're not in a position to do that. So as soon
I
as
agree. I'm not criticizing. I just wonder if that creates a system of
There's a
haves and
new-
have-nots.
So Ed, anyone who is currently enrolled at Sandwich Central School, no matter where they're from, stays there. The only ones we're talking about are new students coming in to K1.
and families that have children, I think there's a realization that keeping siblings together in the same building is advantageous. And they, as a group of siblings, they will matriculate through the school. So it's not like there's going to be a dynasty of people who always get preferential treatment. It's only going to be through a certain number of siblings. And there aren't going to be always the same family having new kindergartners. I personally think that, as articulated in this document, is good and answers a lot of the problems that could come up and as of yet have not particularly come up, and that this addresses it in a systematic and fair way.
Okay.
So
But I've got people asking me, hey, do I have to compete again every year? So that's
No,
why
no,
I'm
no,
asking
no.
the question.
No, once you're in, you're in.
Thank you.
So I think what we can do, if that's a question that's out there, do I have to compete every year? I think that's something Mr. Hilger and I can talk about in terms of messaging
Maybe have
with families who,
fact
Yep.
thing.
frequently ask questions.
Great. So this is an action item. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve this plan as presented?
I move.
I'll second.
Moved by Ms. Starmer, seconded by Mr. Porter Zuckerman. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye, or raise your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Excellent. We are unanimous on that, Mary.
Perfect, thank you.
Next up, we have an outline of the strategic planning process by Mrs. Moriarty,
So
or
I
the very high level.
So our hope, again, is to get lots of stakeholder feedback. And I worked with New Hampshire Listens. So they're a group they're very skilled at facilitating conversations. What I'd like to propose is facilitating a conversation in Meredith, a conversation in Sandwich, a conversation in Center Harbor. And the focus will be what are strengths right now, what are areas you see as growth, and where would you like us to be in 5 years? And, also weaving into that, what would you consider to be a measurement of success? So a facilitated evening for those conversations in each community. New Hampshire Listens, these are all Thursdays, is available April 3rd, April 10th and April 17th. I don't know if, board members are going to be able to go to all of them, or if you want to do some divide and conquer. I was looking at like 6:30 and 8 o'clock. I thought Meredith and Meredith and Sandwich could be done at the schools. Center Harbor, we would be working, not made the request yet, but reaching out to the town to see if we could use the Kerry
Mead Room.
Yes.
We could go up to the old school.
Oh, that might be
It was
fun.
closed in 1970.
Does it have heat? Well,
It does.
April 3rd. Well, that might be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So,
You ought to walk through first.
that might be a good idea. But trying to do it in all 3 communities, Chair Hansen and I were talking a little bit, trying to get the word out. One idea, also before then is offering people a survey opportunity, an electronic one. And, we can put things in the paper, we can email things out.
Right.
But one idea that I had is maybe just, taking some time and standing at the dump and handing out just a card that people can scan a code, and, maybe we can enlist some student help. And,
Recycling
oh,
center.
sorry. Thank you.
Transfer station.
Yeah, transfer station.
A transfer station,
That's the-
which is very important. And so,
I feel like we
but-
had the same clarification last time where we went from dump to recycling center to transfer station.
on that connector in my brain.
It'll
so
come.
that-
A couple of years, we'll all have it.
But,
It's the same people.
one of our challenges is, we do have a large number of people who don't have children in schools.
Right.
And, trying to reach out and get their attention can be a challenge. So really kind of using the rest of this month and March to try to get the word out and try to get the survey developed and out there is what I'd like to propose as the next step. But wanted to make sure that the board is comfortable with that, and those dates of April 3rd, 10th, and 17th, if there's enough capacity to do some board representation.
The other place to do it is at town meeting.
That's,
If we
Yeah.
have.
Oh, and district
Yeah.
meeting, and the district
And the
meeting as well.
Yeah.
district meeting and town
Okay.
meeting, because, there are always tables of people
Yeah.
with information, and if you've got a survey, or even a card with a,
one of the codes on it,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
that's a great place
I
to.
think you're right,
Yeah.
Nancy, because then
Things
you can positively put a card in everybody's hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've
The
got
moderators
reps from
can
each
announce it.
town, so we could just
Yeah.
stand at a table and hand things
Yeah,
out.
that's what Mary's talking
Just something
about.
real simple,
Yeah.
so.
So our big thing is to get our survey done before early March.
And that's I think we can just use a Google form for that. And, again, keeping things pretty straightforward. Strengths, areas of growth,
Mhm.
where would you like this district to be in 5 years? What would be a measure of success of that, and any other comments?
Excellent.
And you're saying a number of places where we might have students or out there,
Yeah, just trying.
like a Hannaford's?
Yeah, we could look at, I think we can try to target some. I think the town meetings seems like a
Town meetings
really
are great.
good
And
place.
actually, if we had some
I think the
students come to
transfer
town
station
meeting,
might be another, and, maybe we do look at Hannaford's as well.
Where the traffic flow
So
goes.
trying to just do, again, trying to get as much outreach, trying to connect with our service groups in all of our communities to, can you help us spread the word? So to try to get as much input. The difficulty of that is when you get a lot of qualitative data is the sorting through it, but I think, we'll muscle through that.
Thank you, Mary.
I don't know, I mentioned this once time before, but Meredith is halfway through its strategic rewrite. So I can get you copies of what they held, the public forum at the community center. They had, I think, over 100 people there in total. And the information that it portrayed was kind of shocking.
And I think, trying to draw on some of those demographics that you said before, because that is some of framing the conversation too.
Yes.
We can, today I was at a workshop and some people were talking about just doing 3 years because things are changing so much. But I do think for the amount of work it is, I think a 5-year, and I think we can look at our current kindergarten, and right, and we can project up. So 5 feels realistic to me, and I think
I just want to say a thought when you mentioned demographic might it be possible to put some of those cards in through the food pantries?
Oh, it's a great idea.
Good idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I was reading something recently that suggested that focus groups first and then a survey was the way to go, because the focus groups help you figure out what you need to ask. And I don't know, I think, I'm just thinking about somebody who doesn't have kids in the school, who's a taxpayer in one of our towns, who, would they even know how to answer what the strengths are or areas of,
So maybe we can pull a few people together to try to just think about how we might tease out a survey that made sense to community members who don't have children versus parents versus staff. One thought I had for like a community piece could be, what do you know about the school? Because that is the hardest part is, what do you know? What do you want to know? What would be the best way to help you better know what's going on?
important to you.
Do you, I think, do you support continuation of public education? There's a lot of changing things and opportunities out there. So, maybe we can grab a few folks to try to tease out a survey.
Nancy, I really appreciate that comment, because I have to admit, when you first mentioned those questions, Mary, I was like, how would I even answer like these questions? Yeah.
Great. Alrighty, so next up, contingency planning for unknown changes to federal grant funds.
I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
So, this is attachment 23, and I want to thank Mr. Twiddell. I think you raised this during the budget process, and then it was raised, I think, by a member of the public during the hearing. So I don't know what to expect, in all honesty. What I do know is that IDA funds and Title I believe I know this correctly, that those existed before the U.S. Department of Education. Title II funds used to be called the Eisenhower grants. So, they've been around a while. I'm not sure, these have been considered entitlement grants. Things that I've heard is it might be things that are more, with a little more flexibility around the funding, that those might be funds that might dry up.
Bye, Siobhan.
And so today I heard on the radio something about, and this was related to research, I think at the university level, and indirect costs. So you see indirect costs there. So you get a percentage that you're allowed to use of grants to put towards indirect costs, they do filter through the SAU office as revenue, because it's all the bookkeeping that goes along with managing the grants, all those administrative pieces. In my contingency plan, and again, it was a great conversation with Chair Hansen about the public comment the other evening. And people looking at, well, why not use the expendable trust at this stage to maybe reduce the budget? The reality is, if those IDEA funds went away, we have a special education teacher we pay for through there. The benefits are primarily covered by the district. Occupational therapists, that's a half-time position. School psychologists, we have 2 psychologists, and we pay each of their salaries half through IDEA. And the reason for that is IDEA requires that part is focused on special education. The other half allows us to have the flexibility for them to work on things that are non-special ed related. So that would pretty much drain the expendable trust. These numbers that I have are based on current salaries. So that balance of 75.
Sorry to interrupt. I apologize for interrupting. I need to step away from a second. The kiddo is making some noise, so give me a second, please. I'll be right back.
So the contingency balance this trust having a balance of 75,000 would actually be less, because this doesn't include the health insurance increase. It doesn't include the salary wages.
I think the important thing to remember is at least we have some dry powder.
Yeah.
And if we have a short-term need, we have some ways to address it.
Yeah,
But not
so
much.
Yes, and I have a couple questions. I didn't interrupt or bring this up the other night, but free and reduced lunch support is also a federal grant, and they haven't talked about dismantling the USDA the way they've talked about dismantling the Department of Education, but that's another federal grant, and from what I have understood, the notion is that these things will be sent back to the states to say, deal with this. We know where New Hampshire is on some of it, they haven't been able to pass the increases to special ed funding for those schools that get those adequacy funds, right? So I think, I may be crying wolf, but I don't think this is a short-term problem. I think we are really lucky that we have these expendable trusts and other things, but we could be without free and reduced lunch money, IDEA money, Title I money, Title II money. We could be without all of those things with nothing from the state coming in.
that, I will say, is one of my concerns. If, because there is the talk of pushing things back to the state. All of like IDEA and the title grants are all formula based, the state is, and they've operated this way. They're the pass through for the US Department of Education in terms of like those formulas and in terms of that distribution to the local education agency out to the schools. I don't know if it will just come as a bucket of money that then each state decides how that bucket of money is spent, which could change then where that money goes or how it is used. So
Or it could be no money at all. I mean, they're drying up all sorts of grants or just stopping them. And a lot of them have court cases saying temporarily blocked from doing that, but there are all sorts of situations where the aim seems to be no more federal grants.
And I will say, something I heard about free and reduced lunch, again, like that's like money that we're receiving throughout our current IDEA grants and title grants is money that we were told our allocation back, like on, starting for July 1, that was your allocation. The free and reduced is something that's could change like almost immediately because it's not as though an allocation is you're billing back to that. So, it is possible if those funds do go away, again, the special education trust could provide a way of softening that for the next year. But then, that could potentially be costs that are brought back to the operating budget.
It's all gonna come back to the operating budget. My point, Nancy, was just, we have something to get through this year.
We do.
And once we get the next budget season, we have a lot more options. They might not be appealing, but at least it would be asking for more money,
I'm so glad you think there are options. I keep remembering that comment that Steve Marchand made in that article. It happens two ways, very gradual and then all of a sudden. And we could be pushed into the all of a sudden category all of a sudden.
We could, but it's
But
speculative at
maybe
this point.
I'm wrong and
Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll have to deal with it one way or the other.
So for what it's worth, like I think Nancy's got a great point. Like if we're talking about contingency planning, let's talk about planning instead of what ifing all day long. I think what are the things that we have to do? We have to be able to communicate to the members of the district, the residents of the district. Hey, this is a potential outcome, good, bad, indifferent, whatever you feel about it, kind of thing. So like, yeah, we're coming to the end of the budget cycle this year, but going forward, like it is a possibility that we will see a significant increase in a budget request next year, and this is why. And everyone should know about that and have that on their mind when we come back next year. So that's, there's some messaging that I think that we need to think about. There's some, Charlie, to your point of what other options are there, we can expend the ETFs, and as you say, soften the blow. But those ETFs only go so far, right? Like that, those are discussions that I think we should have and start, at least have a message in a can, if you will, so that we can put that out there, so that if, as Nancy says, like it happens all at once, well, if it starts to happen all at once, we can put that out there, as opposed to we're at the bottom of the all at once hill, and now we're kind of on our heels, kind of thing. So I mean, I think contingency planning number one is have a message to people that the plan is going to affect, and then then you have your options and so on and so forth. And for those that have been on the board much longer than I am, which is just about everybody, right, that then the question is, from your experience, what options do we have? But I think developing a message or two or three based on most likely, most likely, most unlikely, but most dangerous, if you will. And this is just the way I think. I've said it a million times before. What's the worst thing that can happen? What's the most likely thing that can happen? And if those are the same thing, we've got a real problem. But those are maybe some things that we should have a discussion about, in a different forum.
I agree, and I think also that we need to begin thinking about options outside of just going to our community and saying, we need a 20% increase next year, because I'm exaggerating, but
No, but you're 100% correct, Nancy. You're 100% correct.
if we're for example, if the states are now being asked to, say, who are our allies in this, who are our representatives in the House and in the Senate, who are other districts that we're connected to, who are going to be experiencing the same things, what advocacy do we have at the state level? All of those things, I think, are things that we need to be aware of. So the communication isn't just to our towns, it should also be to, through other districts, to our representatives, so that we can, we're in a position of being one of the wealthy towns that doesn't get adequacy aid, so what does that mean? And all of those things, and I don't know enough at this point myself about the workings of the State House. I know some of the things about the representatives from our districts, and we've got at least two different districts. I don't know, Meredith and Center Harbor are in the same, we've got 3 different districts, so.
We can talk about that in a minute.
But those are the kinds of questions I think we need to start thinking about. If we don't need them, great, but if we do need them, then, at least we've thought of those things and made a bit of a plan.
But
Duncan, go
I
ahead.
do think, we're gonna have to rebuild the expendable trusts. And we are gonna have a massive hit to our budget, and we're gonna go to our taxpayers and say that there are consequences to these actions from Washington. And if they eliminate this source of funding that we've been used to, and that is doing good work for the community, we're gonna have to raise money from our taxpayers to let children be fed, because they need to be fed. And to pay for the commitments of special education that are in law. And I think the messaging is very important, but the very important message is we don't have an option not to do special ed. We don't have an option of not feeding children because they need to be fed. And we may have to have much higher taxes if these things go through. So that's my concern. And that the fundamental thing is we're gonna have to rebuild the expendable trusts. If we hemorrhage out money as a contingency is rebuild the expendable trust.
Anything else on this, Mary?
So I do just want to draw your attention to Title I, Part A. So our objective has been to keep that programming whole. So that is a teacher at ILES, and it is for paraeducators. It's a big part of our primary intervention in the area of reading and mathematics. And again, keeping it whole, what we've done is, the contract last year was significant, so that impacted paraeducators. So being able to transfer funds from the other entitlement grants has allowed us to be able to maintain that level of staffing. I think it's important, again, we want to be able to offer people contracts. I think what's very difficult right now is there's a lot of speculation, right? So it's difficult. But we also, we will be doing contracts for staff, for teachers, generally the end of March, and for paraeducators, that's in May. So this may not all be resolved by then. So how do we move forward without basically having a program disappear that's a pretty instrumental part of.
I think there's gonna be more clarity by the end of March.
That is my hope as well. But we do have, if it is supported, that continuation of the teacher at ILES, that's the academic interventionist, class size reduction, long-term leave replacement. So if that was to get supported at the annual meeting, and we don't have an answer yet for Title I, I think we could feel comfortable giving the Title I teacher a contract and just delay our hiring of that position. What I will say for the 4 paraeducators, what I would say is during the budget process, we had talked about like prioritizing some curriculum work because we had really decimated that part of the budget. I would say we shift priorities for potential end of year fund balance to be able to support providing those contracts. And I think by May, we should have a good sense, if we'll be in a position to do that. So I realize this is a short-term plan for a long-term piece. And I do know that there's some hope to set up some conversations, to have some conversations with local legislators, trying to have them understand, what this looks like, boots on the ground, these conversations regarding funding.
And, just one other thing, because the message to the, it was what you were saying that made me think of this too, Duncan. We need to be able to say that we're thinking about ways to diminish the impact on our taxpayers, because that, it will probably increase taxes, but we're also, and we have to then do it, but figure out ways to say we recognize that taxpayers are funding a lot in our school district. Now we may need to ask for more. We're looking, like you said the other night, we're looking for ways to bring those costs to taxpayers down, even though it's good. So we just need to be sensitive to, we are so lucky to be in a district where we have,
There are some districts who, if Title I funding was to go away, you're talking a substantial amount of staff.
with no tax base to support it.
Correct, and it would be programming that goes away, and Title I is for disadvantaged children.
Yeah.
So, there's a big connection to free and reduced lunch to the Title I.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that every child who's receiving Title I services receives free and reduced lunch, but that was the impetus for it, to try to close achievement gaps. But again, getting the budget down, a major part of that is probably reducing programming, or looking at programming in different ways that people, being palatable to folks.
Anything else on our
On
speculation?
that cheery note,
Next up, 25-26 school year calendar. Mrs. Moriarty.
So this is on for really discussion at this stage. So this has, we typically try to do with the calendar is put it out there so families can see that it's been, it's in the agenda, so that if people have any comments between now and the school board making a final decision. This is basically parallels what we had this year, which is 179 student days. It does allow for an additional professional day for staff. Primarily, we had implemented crisis intervention planning or process as part of our safety program for staff. So that's de-escalation training to, if there's a situation that is becoming somewhat volatile, to have a skill set to be able to draw on, as well as some staff on those days to receive if they needed to intervene physically. So that's a major part of that work on that day.
Any questions for Mrs. Moriarty on the calendar?
It looks pretty similar to this year's.
Yeah.
And we aren't voting on this till April or May,
At the March 18th.
March 18th. Very good. One other item that's not on here that Mary touched on is Ed and I are gonna work with Mary on setting up a meet and greet with our local legislators. We may be reaching out to the Sandwich folks if you would reach out to Anita Burrows, and once we come up with what this meet and greet's gonna look like at a date.
Right.
We gotta check and see with, when they're in session, what days are the best days for them. And I'd like to get Tim Lang to come up, our senator. He's the senator for all three of us.
Yeah.
And I think it would be,
Have you seen this SB 55 bill?
I think
What's that?
The elimination of the land use change tax.
for 5 years. But anyway, so that's, and if everybody wants to participate with us, let Mary know, but it would only be one other person, if anybody. But, so stay
The
tuned.
meet and greet would just be one other person of the.
No, it could, if we could have the whole board there, we'd, have a formal, we'd
And
call
just
a
notice
meeting, notice a meeting, but it would be just to have a presentation for these, talk about our challenges. What we just discussed is a great example of another challenge
Yeah.
that's now been thrown potentially
Yeah.
in our lap. And I'm thinking probably April would be the time for
I'd
that.
be happy to call in the boroughs. if
Okay.
we needed to do that.
Great, thank you.
I think we need to, Charlie, if I may, as we round out or flesh out this engagement, I think it's important that we are very controlled in this initial meet and greet, that we're not trying to overwhelm them with asks or concerns or anything. But as you said, just, hey, this is us, this is us. And as Nancy said earlier, engaging and building that network.
And when you're feeling better, Ed, we'll set up a time where you, me, and Mary can sit down and come together with some sort of plan.
Sounds good.
Great. All right, with that, gosh, we're almost at the end of the meeting. I'm going to, we do not need to have a non-public when we spoke the other day. Does any board member feel the need for a non-public session?
No.
Not if you do.
Then we are gonna not have a non-public session tonight. So, Mr. Parsons, do we have any public comment from
No, sir.
the ether world? Not many people here tonight. So I'm gonna close public comment at 6:56.
So is AI taking it, recording and gonna produce minutes?
It's working on it.
I'm dying to see how they do. It does.
So,
I can share it with you tomorrow if you'd like. It's not wonderful.
It's not,
Well, in this situation, there are multiple people talking that are in public through one microphone. So we
Oh.
can't discern who is
who's
who.
who.
It can when Mr. Twaddell or
Gotcha.
Siobhan were speaking, it will say,
Yeah,
but here it'll say ILSD meeting.
uh-huh.
So as we speak, we're coming from the same microphone.
I
So it's
see.
not beautiful, but
It's helpful.
it
And I
helps.
feel like we're able to turn, honestly, minutes around, even if it's putting some transcription
Yeah.
into ChatGPT to summarize.
Yeah.
I think it's helping that way.
Great.
great. So our next big meeting is the big show on March 5th That is the Interlakes School District Annual Meeting, which starts promptly at 6 p.m. at the Interlakes Middle High School Community Auditorium. Come one, come all. And then a reminder, so that will be to act on the warrant that we have approved to take there. But then the election of new board members, new board members, new term, takes place at the town elections, which start on March 11th. That will be the actual, I think those are all three towns' voting days. The business meetings are different, but that's the following week. And then our next regular school board meeting will be March 18th, which at this point we're planning for a 5:30 non-public session. And then we will wrap that up at 6 o'clock to begin our regular public session,
Which is what date?
which is March 18th.
Not that far
Got it.
away.
No, I know, it is.
That's gonna be hard for me to make.
All right.
Let's see if I can. There's a DC trip, so 2 members of my family are gonna be in the District of Columbia. So,
Is
So
that school sponsored or?
Yeah.
it's the same.
do any board members have any other comment or thoughts before we wrap the meeting up?
I can tell you now that I will be traveling for work in Louisiana starting March 16th. So I will ask for assistance in getting the link so that I can join the non-public session remotely. Obviously, we can't do that with the public comment link.
Yep, very good. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ed. Hope you feel better. I'll be in touch, or Mary will. Take care. Have a good night. Ms. Bannon, you have a good night as well.
Thank you. You all have a good night too.
See ya.
Mr. Twaddell, I just created a meeting link. No, I didn't. I created a meeting invitation for non-public on March 18th. I'll add a Google Meet link to it. So if you use your Interlinks Google Calendar, the invitation should be there. And an update with a Google link should come. But as we get closer, we'll do the same again. But if you're a calendar person, then it should be there waiting for you.
I live by calendars. I just have so many of them. I don't do a good job of cross-leveling them.
I understand that. Have a great night. Hope you feel better.
Appreciate it. Thank you all. Good night.
You're clear.
No, I don't know him.
I had to look it up.
Calm, nice size.